Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ultimate News League. I've been making Division videos for about 12 months, but I think this is honestly the largest amount of news that has leaked before the release of a patch to date. So I'm really excited about sharing that with you today. Drop the video a like if you're excited for patch 1.6. We should find out definitive details on that, on the state of the game coming up very soon. But for now, let's get into the leaked information that's looking very, very promising for the upcoming patch. So first up, let's take a look at the new survey that Ubisoft sent out to a very large number of Division players, talking about a few very exciting things. So just to take you through the structure of this survey in the same way that I did the last one, it sort of starts by asking some demographic information, and then it asks you which games you have played or are interested in. And last time it was really only interested in whether or not you had played Destiny, the Taken King. There are actually follow-up questions in the previous survey about that. This survey has many more follow-up questions, asking questions about Destiny, about Rainbow Six, about Watch Dogs 2, and Diablo 3. So obviously there's a bit of a mix there already about the kind of games that they're interested in. The whole MMO shooter game within Destiny, Rainbow Six being a Tom Clancy shooter, we've got Watch Dogs 2 being an open world game, and finally Diablo 3 being that real looter. It follows up by asking specifically about survival games and which of those you've played. So already we're getting a sense that this survey is specifically interested in the survival genre. At this point there's a whole bunch of questions about survival, like did you like it, how do you typically play it, was it clear to you, do you think you'll keep playing it, all this sort of stuff. And then it busts out with this question: how interested would you be in a last man standing mode for survival, giving the example of a battle royale Hunger Games style experience there? Now this is something I would absolutely love to see in the game. The format just so naturally lends itself to this idea that only one person emerges at the end of the entire run. It just fits so well, and I would love to see it. I actually love the PvP in the survival game mode. It just works so well, and I would love to see them expand on that ambition with a battle royale style kind of game. So I think the fact that they're asking this many questions about the survival game mode and this specific question about a last man standing mode indicates that Massive are well and truly not done with survival and are planning improvements. People were definitely concerned that once they drop survival they would just leave it and make no further changes to it. But it's one of the most celebrated and respected components of the game, so it's good to know that Massive aren't going to be resting on their laurels and will continue to put time and effort into this really excellent game mode. However, it doesn't end there. The survey then starts asking really interesting questions about whether or not you'd be interested in reading stories, or novels specifically, set in the Division universe. Now obviously this is a Tom Clancy game, and Tom Clancy is an author. That's where all of this began, so it's not a huge leap to assume that they would take this world into the book world, so to speak. They ask you what kind of things would you be interested in, like prequels for the Division story, stories from the the point of view of the enemies, stories inspired by the Dark Zone. Like where would you like to see that story taken? So who knows what might happen? We may start seeing some actual Division books emerging, which I think would also be pretty rad. But we've saved the best for last. The very last set of questions start asking some really loaded stuff. Specifically, where should Tom Clancy's The Division bring you in the future? Examples include a new city with a continuation of the story, New York City, continuation of the story, a new city set during the current events of the Division in New York City, a new city set in a different time period, or something else. So yeah, that's pretty damn big. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely that they look to add a new city to the game through DLC. I just think that the scale of that kind of thing, an entirely new city or new adventure, is most likely going to be delivered through a sequel, which makes the next question very important. They ask, how likely are you to buy a follow-up of Tom Clancy's The Division? Now this is not DLC. The phrase follow-up does not indicate DLC, it indicates a damn sequel, and of course I think many of us would be very, very pumped to see that. So it's interesting that they're positioning these sorts of questions now, and I can tell you this, Ubisoft take these questions extremely seriously. If you have a look through their annual reports or any of the sort of investor content that they've put out, this question is a huge determining factor in whether or not they keep a license alive and look to deliver a sequel into it. Watch Dogs, for example, had a lot of controversy surrounding it, but they decided to go forward with a sequel because there was a very high sort of response rate when they asked people whether or not they'd be interested in purchasing a sequel. So this is exciting. The fact that they are asking these questions now indicates that they are seriously considering a sequel. I'm obviously super psyched for that. I really hope that we have plenty of year 2 content to come to keep us going while we wait for that sequel, but I think this is a very positive sign that Ubisoft look to keep the game alive in the long term. So that's the survey out of the way. Very, very exciting stuff, but what else is there? Well, many of you at this point may have seen this screenshot, which refers to a new mission set in the map. It is a clinic mission, and that's all fine. We would kind of assume or expect that there'd be at least 1 or 2 new missions coming at some point. What the really interesting part of this one, though, is mention of the Bratva. Now, the Bratva are Russian mafioso, essentially, and there's all these, like, stereotypical pictures of guys dressed in Adidas tracksuits and the like, but this has never been mentioned in the game before. Never has this been brought up. So the fact that we have a new patch coming, we've got a new mission coming, and they're also specifically referring to a faction or a group of people that has never been referred to before indicates that we may be seeing a new faction arriving in patch 1.6. Now, none of this is confirmed, of course. No idea whether this is true or not, but the fact this popped up in so many people's game clients, I think is pretty damn telling. So watch this space. I would love to see a new faction coming through. And obviously, we've got the Hunters already, and they're great. I would love to see what Massive would be able to do with an entirely new set of enemies with a whole new background story. So, you know how, like, named weapons have been utter garbage since forever and you've never wanted to use a single one of them except for maybe, like, the Hungry Hog and that's about it? Well, Like Butter recently went to the Elite Task Force over in North Carolina, and while he was there, he got a playable build of the game. He got to actually see what 1.6 was. When he got back, he was streaming, and he said this.
Great to see you back. Sorry I missed the stream yesterday. Is there anything we should do to prepare for 1.6? Buy the named weapons.
And he was also earlier seen purchasing up named weapons. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a betting man, but if I were, I would say there is an extremely high chance that named weapons are getting a buff in patch 1.6. Obviously, this is not confirmed, but it would be damn strange for Like Butter, who has seen patch 1.6, to start randomly buying up trash weapons for no reason. So I'm not going to call this confirmed, but I am going to say there is a very, very high chance that we're going to see some good stuff here. So if buffed weapons are on the way, there's a few things we can discern from Like Butter's actions. Firstly, I'm going to assume that the changes are actually retrospective rather than applying to any future drops. Otherwise, he wouldn't say to start buying them up now. So hopefully, if you've collected named weapons to date, they might actually be good without you having to go and farm them all over again, which would be pretty damn awesome. Secondly, and most importantly, I'm going to assume that there's probably no gear score increase coming in patch 1.6, because if there was, Butter wouldn't be interested in buying up these items right now. He'd want to be farming them in patch 1.6 instead. So I think that we're going to see no gear score increase this tier, which I think is fantastic. We have all farmed plenty of gear, and we would all love to be able to use it in patch 1.6 in the revised PvP context. So hopefully Massive do go down this path, because I certainly don't want to go through that grind all over again so soon. The other thing that's become apparent in the last little while is that we are also likely to see a significant amount of PVE content coming through as well. Most of us had been operating under the assumption that this patch was almost exclusively a PvP patch, but recent comments from ETF members, a few of them in fact, indicate that we are likely to see PvE content as well. No detail yet on what that content is, but it's good to know that something is coming and that it isn't just like 1 or 2 more challenge mode missions. It sounds like something pretty chunky indeed. And the very final thing, and what I think is most exciting because it's coming really soon, is that it looks like the PTS is happening sooner rather than later. A recent note in Steam's registry indicate that a new PTS build was uploaded and that people have been playing on it. That indicates to me that there's a PTS out there somewhere and they're only going to upload it if they're going to be pretty close to deploying it. Now, I think it's a safe bet to assume we're going to hear big details about patch 1.6 in tomorrow's state of the game. So I think there's a very good chance that we could see the PTS as soon as this weekend, or at the very latest sometime next week. Massive have indicated that we can expect 1.6 Last Stand to happen early in the year, and I think the general rumblings was it's going to be around February or March. So if they put this PTS up and they need to keep it up for a few weeks in order to make sure it's tested properly, then this would fit that overall timeline. Now, there's no information yet on whether or not there's going to be a console PTS. I certainly hope there will be because god damn it, console players certainly deserve it. So let's hope that Massive and Sony and Microsoft are able to come through for us on this one. And that's it, guys. That is all of the news. Upcoming changes to survival, the idea of a potential Division 2 along the way, new Tom Clancy books based on the Division, a new mission and potentially a new faction. We've got named weapon buffs. It's very unlikely that we're going to see a gear score increase, and we could be playing the PTS as soon as this weekend. I think you'll see now that I wasn't exaggerating when I said this was the biggest set of news leaks I had seen in my 12 months covering the Division. Guys, I love this time. The build up towards a patch is always one of the most exciting times to be playing. Cannot wait to see all this stuff unfold. It's looking really awesome already. If you're excited about patch 1.6 Last Stand, drop the video a like, guys. Don't forget to subscribe because of course I'm going to be covering it end to end. Thank you very much for watching. Take good care and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.